Hey, welcome back. I'm glad to see you back. It's Kyle again. And if you recall our last video, we talked about my wife and I deciding we needed to build a system for our family to thrive. And I want you to know what we did in that case. And one of the things we did was we really just dug in to our problems. We didn't want to just survive. We really wanted to thrive. We didn't want to be like a lot of people who struggle from day to day, who seem like they're constantly in turmoil and constantly have problems. And it's very painful and frustrating, and a lot of people suffer very continuously as they go through this process. And we knew that, and we had experienced that, and we didn't want to experience that. We wanted to really put ourselves in a position to thrive. And if you'll recall, also I told the story about the PMA, the Positive Mental Attitude book I had gone through. And so if you'll recall that, we talked about the 3 keys to really the difference in knowing what to do and actually doing it, where number 1 was motivation. And certainly I had motivation, and my family had motivation to want to thrive and to want to experience joy and happiness as we went through this process. We also needed a step-by-step plan. And in my previous situation, I had a book. And it was exciting because right there were the 10 things I needed to do, and I was able to follow them very easily. But in this situation, there was no book. I mean, I looked everywhere to find out what should parents do. How should parents live so that they can thrive and survive, not just survive, but thrive and enjoy and experience happiness as they serve their kids with autism. That book didn't exist. But the one thing I realized that I was missing, along with the action, was I really needed collaboration. I really needed the help of my 2 oldest sons and my wife at the time. I really needed feedback, and we really needed to put this thing together so that we could experience that happiness and joy as a family and work together to get back to where we wanted to be. And I want to tell you, when we started doing this, we had absolutely dramatic results. I can recall by the time my oldest son was 17, he was asked to speak to a group of parents about what it's like to be a brother in a family that has children with autism. And I was a little nervous about this. I was excited for him, and I knew he'd do a great job, but I was a little nervous because he didn't want to tell me what he was going to talk about. And I was really kind of scared because I didn't know if he was going to stand up there and say, you know, I don't get enough attention, or my dad and mom spend so much time working with Eric and Ricky, my other son affected by autism, that they don't really spend the time they need to with me, or I feel left out, or we can't do things that we should be able to do because of their situation. So I was really kind of nervous that he'd go in there and really kind of expose maybe some pain that he had. And so I kind of badgered him a little bit. You know, you got to be careful badgering 17-year-olds, but I said, you know what, Alec, this is a pretty interesting thing coming up. Can I help you with it? And he said, I've got it, Dad. Well, that made me even more nervous. So about a week later, I said, hey, Alec, you know, if you want to throw ideas at me to flesh some out or maybe some feedback, I'm happy to do that. And he said, don't worry about it, Dad, I got it. And he wouldn't tell me a thing about it. And as it got closer and closer, I got more and more nervous. And I realized at that point, you know what? Whatever he says, I'm going to have to learn from him too. And if it's bad, I'm going to need to fix it. I'm going to need to go back to work and figure out what I can do to make him feel loved and special. And when he got up there and he started talking, and I guess I was kind of surprised, but at the same time I wasn't surprised that he had picked up a lot, just an extreme amount of the principles and the techniques we were using as a family and had developed to make sure we all thrived and all felt loved and all experienced happiness and joy, even when there were meltdowns, or even when we realized we couldn't go somewhere because of Eric and Ricky's situation, or when we felt left out because others would do things and they knew we couldn't take our kids in those situations. So, and at that time he spoke for about 20 minutes. It was pretty exciting for me to watch. And he called them the 4 A's of happiness and joy. And I'll never forget just sitting there and being so proud. And it really struck me at that moment that we were on our way. We had developed something that allowed us, not just as parents, but as a whole family, to enjoy our lives and to really thrive in this situation. And so at the time, after we talked about it, my wife and I, she said, Kyle, you got to get this information out there. There's other people that are suffering. And it just hurts us to see those people suffering when they just don't have to. When they can experience joy and happiness and thrive as they work through these problems and as they deal with these trials. There's a way to do that. And so she said, you've got to get it out there. And so we started blogging, and we started we started a Facebook page called Autism Laughter Therapy, where we posted silly and wacky and zany things that our kids were doing, and the awkward things they did, and we just really enjoyed it and had fun with it. And we started getting more and more followers, and people started asking us to present in more and more situations. And I'll never forget, I did a pretty big presentation to a group of about 50 people at one point. And what I didn't know at the time was there was 3 kids in the back of the room who were that had autism or Asperger's. And when I was done, I went down to a booth I was manning, and the next morning, I came back to the booth for the next day for the conference, and a guy came running in, and he threw his arms around me, and he introduced himself as Mark, and he had tears in his eyes, and he said, "You know what? One principle you taught me yesterday has changed me, because this morning my little boy wouldn't put his tennis shoes on. My 5-year-old little boy was fighting me, and I was getting so frustrated, and then I remembered one of the simple techniques that you had taught in your presentation, and I remembered it, and I applied it immediately, and I changed my temperament, and I started to have fun with him, and lo and behold, the kid put his shoes on, and he left for school happy, and I left for this conference happy." And he said, "I got to tell you, Kyle, my day could have been ruined for the whole day, but because of that one simple principle that I learned, I'm feeling great. I feel great about how I manage myself. My little boy feels great because I had fun with him. The day is going to be wonderful for us." And he was so excited. And it was really exciting for me to see that feedback real time, to understand that this stuff was really helping people. But a couple hours later was when it really struck home for me. As I was standing there with my number 2 son, those three kids came up to me, and they were grown-ups at this point, between 20 and 30 years old. And in broken English, one of them said to me, "We've been talking, and we appreciate what you're doing, and we wish our parents did what you did and knew what you know and are teaching people." And I said, "Tell me why." And he said, "Because they would be happier, and they would accept us for who we are." And it floored me. I didn't know what to say or what to do, but I realized at that moment I needed to do more. I got home and told my wife the story, and my oldest son was standing next to me crying. We were a mess. And my wife at that point said, "Kyle, you've got to do more. Write a book. Do something, right?" So we wrote a book. It's called Thriving Chaos. You can go to Amazon and look up Kyle Jetsel Thriving Chaos. It's there. And we were able to impact more and more people. And as we went on, we started to see feedback from people, and they wanted more. They wanted more information. They wanted to see exactly how we had done what we had done as a family. And so I remember one night I was sitting down with my wife, and I said, "I feel like I need to do more, but I'm not sure what to do." And my wife said to me, "If you could build something that would guarantee the success of these families, and money was no object, pretend somebody could pay you $1 million for it, what would you build?" And I really had to stop and think about that, because I wasn't really sure what I could do. I couldn't go out and meet with these families for a day or two, and even if I did, I'm not sure that would be what they needed. And so in the next video coming up here right away, you're going to click over to it. I'm going to tell you the answer. I'm going to tell you what we decided to build as a family and why it's so important for you to see this information and start thriving in your family. We want more than anything other families out there who are suffering to feel the way we feel and to have the love and happiness in their homes that we do. We want you to thrive. And so we put something together I think is pretty special. So stay with me, click on the next video, and you're going to see exactly what we did.